And we're going to see what they do, and we'll continue to cover this recruiting saga here on Locked On Sooners, so make sure you're tuned in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We got to discuss the Super Sooners. Once again, Oklahoma run-ruled their way through the Norman Regional. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners went 3-0 in the Norman Regional, beating Boston and Cal ×2, outscoring their opponents 31-3, winning by run rule 3 times to advance to the Super Regionals, where they will face the Alabama Crimson Tide. It is the 15th consecutive season in which they have made the Super Regional. If you don't recall, the 2020 season was canceled due to COVID. So if you're looking at the dates and you're looking at the years and like, wait, where's that 2020? That's why. But 15 consecutive seasons in which the NCAA tournament was played, the Oklahoma Sooners have made the Super Regional. Just an incredible streak. You see across the first weekend of college softball, the number 1 team lost, another top 16 seed lost, and there are others that really had to go the wire to survive regional weekend to advance to Super Regionals.
It's crazy to see Oklahoma, like I said, 15 years consecutively going into the Super Regionals, and then from there, good chance we're going to see them going down come back to Oklahoma City, because I think this team, even young, is still so talented, and they may be head and shoulders more talented above than the competition. And it's funny because them and A&M tied for the SEC championship, and then A&M gets eliminated, right? Didn't even make it to the Super Regionals. That is bananas to me. So Sooners having the number 2 seed, they've got a lot of little angst on their back for the fact they was disrespected going into this tournament. And now they get to show it off. I'm pretty impressed with the fact that they won 3 games by 3 run rules. They want to get in and get out. So that's how you handle business. Not waiting in line. No, they get what they want and they walked out. So I expect Oklahoma to keep that going in the Super Regionals. Do you know who they pulled for that?
Yep. So they'll play Alabama, which is a good opportunity for a little bit of redemption.
Gotta get some
they
revenge.
lost the season series to the Crimson Tide down in Tuscaloosa. So now Oklahoma gets them on their field up at Love's Field in Norman for this one. So again, a good opportunity to get a little bit of retribution for that series loss. Now, this team is playing different ball now than what they were playing back then. That was like those 2 series in a row against Alabama and against Tennessee where they just were not hitting very well. And they weren't very attacking. They weren't very it just nothing was really coming together. And Patty Gasso kind of went into them a little bit and said and demanded they be better. And they've gotten better since then. But since NCAA tournament plays began and even dating back into the SEC tournament, the offense has been rolling, man. They've been humming. And in this series in particular, Cassidy, Pickering, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, especially over the last 2 games. Gabby Garcia, the true freshman, just coming in aggressive at the plate. I've loved watching her disposition at the plate. She's coming up hacking, man. She is not sitting back, letting pitchers get into friendly counts. She's coming up and being aggressive. And man, you love to see that, given it's your first NCAA tournament and you're coming out. And I mean, she leads the team in home runs for a reason. She's got 18 home runs on the season, had 2 more over the weekend. Just another really, really great series. But Sam Landry, dude, she started all 3 games. She only went 4 innings in one of those. It was the first game against Cal on Saturday, but she just did her job. And then the bullpen came in and was really, really good. The bullpen gave up no runs, whether it was Kirsten Deal or Audrey Lowry or Peyton Monticelli or Isabella Smith. They were all just shut down. It was awesome.
That's the crazy part, John. And that was the one thing that everybody had fears, especially after what was that? Was that the Texas match?
Yep,
they were up
Texas
8-0. Yeah, it's Texas. Yeah. Up 8-0, and then you bring in a young arm and unfortunately get cooked in that game. Mm-hmm. But to me, that's a good thing. Sometimes you need to go through that adversity. You need to get them used to and accustomed to understanding how to rally back to get a W. The offense eventually got to the point and they get the dub, but having a young arm kind of struggle, but don't pull them immediately. Patty does a great job of doing that. I've seen her do that with a few other players, that she doesn't pull them out immediately when they're struggling, gives them a chance to try to work their way through it. And that's how you're going to develop players, especially when your team is young, because this is a quote-unquote rebuild team.
Yeah.
And it's more of a retool, and it's an adjusting team in comparison to last year's, one of the greatest 4-year run for those players. This one is starting to build itself up to try to go and chase that same thing. And so getting down to Super Regionals in their final 16, there's a good chance they can. So I'll be tuned in this weekend.
Yeah, you were talking about that Texas game, and Audrey Lowry was the one that came in with that 8-0 lead. She gives up 5 runs. Well, since that, she's gone 6 1/3, hasn't allowed a run. Over her last 3 appearances, I don't think she's allowed a hit.
That's what you needed.
And so
experience works. Yeah, the experience
that
can
game
work.
might have been terrible, but
it was
something has clicked after that, and she's really humming right now. And Landry, being able to go in and start all 3 games. She gave up 2 runs in the first game to Cal, and she gave up an unearned run in Sunday's win over Cal. But she was just balling like Sam Landry does. Giving them an opportunity to get a lead and then making that lead stand up, and then Patty Gasso going to the bullpen, being able to not overextend Landry in those games, not have to have her throw all 5 innings, and setting themselves up for now. She gets to wait till Thursday at the earliest, but possibly Friday, where she gets all this rest now. And she wasn't overextended. She threw 10 innings in 3 games. So just a masterful job by Patty Gasso and Jennifer Rocha for how they managed the pitching staff. And then just the lineup, everybody in the lineup just participating and contributing, whether it was, true freshmen or veterans on the roster. It's been awesome to see them turn it on since postseason play began.
Yeah. And that's what you want to see from your young players. Rise to the occasion, get out there and figure it out and get the W. And so I think that this team is poised to make another run, John. I don't want to jinx them too much, but after we just saw the number 1 team get knocked off, which is still funny, I wonder if Greg Sankey, Papa Sankey, has looked at this and said, I think I need to take this cold title thing off and just give it to the better team, which the better team is the one that is now headed to the Super Regionals, while the other one that was a pseudo or assumed better gets eliminated by Liberty.
Man, it just goes to show that, you don't always know, and don't doubt the Oklahoma Sooners and Patty Gasso.
Exactly.
They just came out and they just took care of business. There was no real threat in any of these games. I think maybe at one point it was 1-1. It might have been 1-1 in a game, or maybe not. I might be making that up. I think Oklahoma got up 1-0, and then they went up 4-0 in that game on Saturday. And on Sunday, again, they gave up a run that made it, I want to say it made it 5-1 or 4-1. And then Oklahoma proceeded to put up 8 runs in an inning and just run away with the thing. So I'm done doubting Oklahoma. They're young. Yeah, they might have some pitching concerns, but I've seen that team. The year that it was Hope Troutwine, or Giselle Juarez that were the frontline pitchers for this team. Those pitching staffs weren't great. They were good. They were good enough, but they had really good lineups to go along with it, and they got enough outs. And as long as this team gets enough outs and they keep hitting the way that they're hitting, they're going to go deep in this thing. And again, I'm done doubting them. I'm done doubting Patty Gasso. I'm not going to, will they win it all? I don't know, man. That's why they go play the games. They've got as good a chance as anybody to go win this all. They really do.
They do. 100%.
Matchups are going to matter. Who they end up playing in the Women's College World Series, if they get that far, it's going to matter. But I'm a believer. This young team isn't playing like a young team at all.
Yeah, they're playing like some veterans, or they're playing like some who've gone through adversity and understands what they need to do to get past it. And I'm glad to see it. They're calming down. They're like, okay, let's get my pitch in front of me and go after it. The pitchers are taking their time, like, all right, let me get the throws that I know are going to get me some results. You see, it's like a hush came over the crowd, and pretty impressive.
Well, what's really interesting about this is you can go back to whether it's Jocelyn Allo's true freshman season or Tiara Jennings or Jada Coleman, or even last year with Ella Parker and Cassidy Pickering. You had true freshmen playing significant roles on these teams, these championship teams, even when there were veterans. These true freshmen coming up clutch and being big-time contributors where they're not having to wait their turn just because they're true freshmen. No. Gabby Garcia, a true freshman, Nellie McEnroe Marinas, a redshirt freshman. They're coming up clutch, and they're not sitting back like, no, I'm going to let the veterans. No, they're leading from the front as true freshmen, and that is incredibly impressive. So excited to see what they do against Alabama next weekend in the Norman Super Regional. There'll be 3 games if needed, but hopefully Oklahoma gets in, gets out, and knocks them out in 2, and then advances to the Women's College World Series once again. But again, it's going to be a big test. Alabama's a good team, but Oklahoma is definitely capable of advancing to Oklahoma City for another chance at a national title. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John 9 Williams. And you can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner. Yeah, they're definitely going past Super Regionals. I just need them in OKC so I can go to a game.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Back to their home in Devon Park.